petroleum, spelling trouble for countries dependent on imports.
Well, we are pretty sure, because we have made a lot of studies dealing with this problem, and our conclusion is that we save at least 0.7 liters per 100 kilometers.
Around 80% of the country's energy relies on imported oil and gas. That's a fifth above the average for the entire European Union. So for the next 4 months, the speed limit on Spain's highways goes down from 120 kilometers per hour to 110. That, says the government, will reduce oil imports by 5%, saving the country just over $3 billion. Well, Libyan oil currently accounts for just over 13% of Spain's demand. And while Spain's oil supplies are in no danger just yet, the reduction in this national speed limit is just one of the ways that the government is trying to get people to cut down on fuel. And that's a scenario that's not been seen in this country since the 1973 oil crisis. Also approved increased use of biofuels, a modest reduction in train fares and subsidized tire exchanges. But with a sluggish economy still struggling its way out of the recession, the measure hasn't exactly been welcomed with open arms, with many seeing it as a ploy to distract the country from other problems.
I think that there are more important things that the government should be concerned with, and they shouldn't be wasting people's time and money on this.
It is laughable. It doesn't really contribute anything to the economy in general, if that is what it's about.
While oil prices remain high, the debate goes on over what alternatives there are for Spain's energy consumption. A sign of the times in an increasingly shaky climate. Sonia Gallego, AlJazeera, Madrid.
Tariq Youssef with us once again, the Dean and Senior Research Fellow at the Dubai School of Government. I'm going to try to cover off some different topics with you each time we have you up here. This idea of arming the rebels, if I can put it that way. We heard our correspondent say earlier that they are very enthusiastic, but they perhaps haven't got the organisation or the firepower. Where would they get that from in the end? What are the ideas circulating about that?
They could purchase some of these weapons on the open market. That obviously would require time and assumes that they've got the liquidity to be able to do so. In the absence of control over Libya's financial assets or the ability to export oil from the east, that is a difficult option at the moment. The easiest way for them to get arms is for the world community to provide them with these arms. Now, it could be the US, could be the Europeans, could be NATO, and it could be done with the cooperation of countries in the region. The border with Egypt is open. The Egyptians could possibly look the other way and allow for these arms to slip in. Logistically, that becomes easier, it's doable. They could reach the front line within 48 to 72 hours and make a difference. I think the need right now is possibly for anti-tank missiles, some air-to-surface missiles as well. The rebels armed with these could then test the resolve of the will and the capability of the forces ahead in Sirte.
Because we talk about how control seems to seesaw between rebels and government forces, but in the end the government forces are the ones with the firepower, with the air capabilities, which is very crucial, and this is something the rebels are always going to come back. They'll probably be able to go so far, but then have to fall back again.
Absolutely. We don't know exactly what the readiness and the sophistication of the equipment that the government forces have. The rebels are discovering this on the ground on a day-by-day basis.
They find out when it happens,
They find out when it happens. Small arms supplies to the rebels could help possibly tactically in the next coming days make a big difference. And the US would avoid the military intervention, which looks increasingly politically infeasible. And perhaps the outside community could just let the Libyans sort this out without getting entangled in domestic local politics. And then it becomes a real sort of Libyan revolution as opposed to one where the outside world intervene on behalf of one side or the other.
Got to keep moving, Tariq. We'll talk to you again next hour, though. Thank you. Let's look at Côte d'Ivoire now, where gangs of youths and uniformed police have looted at least 10 homes belonging to politicians allied to the opposition leader Alassane Ouattara. In the west of the country, rebels claim they've captured the town of Toleplu from government forces, but Gbagbo's military deny any of this. Let's get the latest from Mohamed Ado, who's live in Abidjan now. Mohamed, so this is essentially targeting those linked directly to Mr. Ouattara, the internationally recognised president.
Yes, Kamal, it seems so. And the incidents of lawlessness in Abidjan seem to be getting more and more by the day. Up to 10 houses, as you said, there have been looted, and most of them belong to officials who were very close to President Alassane Ouattara. And one of them, one of the houses that was looted yesterday was the house of Mr. Charles Kofi, Alassane Ouattara's appointed finance minister. So many other houses of people who are close to him, mayors in his RDR party, have been looted, and some of them burnt down. Witnesses spoke of dozens of young men looting, smashing the doors and the windows of every house, and later living on wearing suits and robes and carrying dishes and other valuables from these houses. And some of these same youths are setting up roadblocks on the streets of Abidjan. We were up and about last night, and we saw like almost every street in the capital has been cut and blockaded by these youth. They're searching every vehicle and every motorbike. They say they do not want any firearms to cross and get to the rebels in the north. They also say they have stern instructions to ensure that the UN peacekeepers do not get to some parts of the town, and that they blockade and curtail their movements.
So it sounds like a pretty serious uptick in unrest there, and UN peacekeepers, which you were talking to me about yesterday, reinforcements still not due for a while. Is there a feeling that control is being lost here at the moment?
Well, the UN officials say that they are very thinly spread on the ground. They do not have enough boots to ensure that every part of the city where most of the volatility is manned and patrolled. They are talking about the need for ensuring that they monitor the situation from the airspace above Abidjan, because they say the situation could turn into bloodshed at any moment. And also in some of the suburbs of the capital where Alassane Ouattara supporters live, the only security is the UN peacekeepers.
Mohamed Ado live in Abidjan. Thank you, Mohamed. The trial of former French President Jacques Chirac begins on Monday. He's facing charges of corruption which date back to his time as mayor of Paris. Tim Friend with the details.
In typical style, Jacques Chirac always insisted that he wanted to be treated like any other person facing trial. But that's unlikely to happen. The 78-year-old, one of France's longest-serving presidents, seems to grow in popularity with the French public, who view him with a particular fondness, the envy of other politicians. This is despite the fact that he's the first former head of state to face criminal charges since the Fifth Republic was founded half a century ago.
He is a man who sort of does the right thing at critical times. I mean, we've seen it politically at other times, like saying that France should not be involved in Iraq. We've seen it at times where he stood up for the rights of Parliament. And we saw it, of course, that he was very unequivocally against the Front National. And, that he stands as a statesman for that, I think, whatever his other faults.
He's now in fragile health. His wife, Bernadette, dismissed reports that he's suffering from Alzheimer's disease, but he may find a court appearance arduous.